Good morning, everybody. This is Mike Brennan at the National Hurricane Center on Tuesday, November 8th, with an update on what's now Tropical Storm Nicole. You can see in the satellite imagery here this morning that Nicole looks a lot different than it did yesterday. It has much more of a typical appearance of a tropical storm. We have a lot of shower and thunderstorm activity that's developed near and over the center of the storm in the last 12 hours. But Nicole still has this broad outer circulation with tropical storm force winds extending out as much as 380 miles from the center. So we're going to have a very large area of impacts, but potentially higher end impacts as we expect Nicole to go on and intensify to a hurricane as it approaches the northwest Bahamas and the east coast of Florida late Wednesday into Thursday. Right now, Nicole has maximum sustained winds of about 50 miles per hour, and it's now moving to the west at 9 miles per hour, and it's more than 400 miles to the east of West Palm Beach, Florida at this point in time. Now, looking at the forecast, pretty steady forecast since yesterday, not a whole lot of change. We've seen the forecast evolve, but Nicole has stopped moving northwestward or west-northwestward. It's now moving more west. We expect a motion to the south of due west over the next 12 to 24 hours, and then to turn back toward the west and west-northwest as the system approaches the coast of Florida. Now, exactly where that turn occurs will determine exactly what area we see the worst conditions in here along the Florida East Coast, but we've now issued a hurricane warning from Palm Beach County up through Volusia County. And that anywhere in that area, including places like West Palm Beach, Stewart, Melbourne, up to Daytona Beach, anywhere in here is at the risk of hurricane conditions, as we are expecting Nicole to take advantage of these warm waters and go on and intensify to a hurricane as it approaches the coast during the next 36 to 48 hours. Now, we also have tropical storm warnings farther to the north up through the rest of the northeast Florida coast up into southeastern Georgia, and also a tropical storm watch along much of the Florida Gulf Coast from the Fort Myers area north through Tampa into the Big Bend region. And we could see, again, widespread wind impacts across both coasts of Florida and extending up into the southeast U.S. Now, remember, Nicole has this very, very large wind field, so these tropical storm force winds are going to move on shore well in advance of the arrival of the center. So today is really the day to take action along the Florida East Coast. Conditions are going to start to deteriorate overnight tonight and into Wednesday as those tropical storm force winds move inland. Now, after landfall, we expect Nicole to turn northwestward and then sharply northeastward as it accelerates ahead of an approaching cold front. We expect the system to move through the southeastern U.S. and then be absorbed by the cold front and lose its tropical characteristics as we get into the weekend, but it's still going to bring a lot of moisture and wind to portions of the southeast U.S., and then heavy rainfall associated with Nicole's remnants will move up into the mid-Atlantic and northeast states. We'll talk about that in just a minute. In terms of the arrival time of tropical storm force winds, the be ready by time is really along the Florida East Coast is by tomorrow morning, and then extending along the Florida West Coast during the day and up into North Florida by tomorrow night and Thursday. In terms of the wind watches and warnings inland, not just a coastal event, we have that hurricane warning in effect along the East Coast, tropical storm warnings in effect for places like Fort Lauderdale, Orlando metro area, and tropical storm watches across the west central portions of the state of Florida all the way over to the west coast. So again, know what your risk is from certainly in those tropical storm force areas. You could see blowing debris, tree limbs down, you could see some scattered power outages, could see more substantial wind impacts in the hurricane warning area where we could see tree damage, some damage to roofs, more substantial power outages as we go through the next couple of days. Now, it's not just a wind event. There's a lot of water coming with Nicole. We have a storm surge warning that's in effect for much of the east coast of Florida, from North Palm Beach all the way up through Cape Canaveral, up through places like St. Augustine, Jacksonville, and up to Altamont Sound, Georgia, including places like the St. Johns River. These areas were significantly impacted, especially central and north Florida, during Hurricane Ian. So there's a lot of vulnerability there along the coast to coastal flooding, significant wave action, and storm surge. And we could see storm surge values as high as 3 to 5 feet above ground level in this storm surge warning area. So I'm 6 feet tall. That's water that's almost up to the top of my head. So if you live in a storm surge evacuation zone along the east coast of Florida in that storm surge warning area, please know what you're going to do if water begins to rise in your area. You may need to leave your home, and certainly follow any advice you're given by your local emergency officials. We could also see significant coastal flooding farther north up to the northeast, the northern portion of the Georgia coast, 2 to 4 feet above ground level of inundation there. Also portions of Broward County, Florida along the east coast, and also along the west coast north of the Tampa Bay region up to Suwannee River. So again, the large wind field of Nicole is going to be moving a lot of water around for over the next few days. Now, the water is also going to come from the sky. We're going to have a significant rainfall event Over Florida, 3 to 5 inches of rain totals widespread with isolated amounts as high as 7 inches. Now, it's hard to tell exactly where those heaviest rains are going to fall because it's going to be somewhat dependent on the exact track of Nicole's center. But right now we're looking at east central and eastern Florida with the highest risk of heavy rainfall. And again, these are areas that received a lot of heavy rainfall with Ian. We still have places like the St. Johns River that are very elevated, and that's going to exacerbate the flooding there and the potential combination of heavy rainfall and storm surge meeting up at that coastal interface could cause a lot of flooding in other locations near the Atlantic coast. We do have the potential for scattered flash flooding is going to be likely across much of Florida as we go from Wednesday into Thursday and Friday and extending up into portions of the coastal southeast. And then, as I mentioned, the heavy rainfall and moisture from Nicole is going to be pulled northward ahead of a cold front and going to contribute to a heavy rainfall event across the Carolinas, the Mid-Atlantic, and even up into the Northeast as we go from Friday into Saturday. For those of you in that hurricane and storm surge warning areas along the Florida East Coast, again, today is the day to get ready. Make sure you have your preparedness kit, your disaster supplies ready, food and water. Make sure your gas tank is full. Make sure you have medicine and prescriptions, cash on hand. If power goes out, make sure you have a way to get information. Make sure all your devices are charged up. And please be safe and listen to any advice you get from your local officials. So thanks for tuning in today. I'm Mike Brennan at the National Hurricane Center. Stay tuned for more updates on Tropical Storm Nicole through the week.